In summary, we're learning that how there are three natures of diffusion. Unchanging positive is a diffusion to itself. That's its nature will not change. Its nature is a diffusion to itself. Our unchanging positive identity is diffusing through all the different parts of our body. So all space nature has only one nature of positive. Excuse me. Always rushing. Diffusing through itself. In other words, two semi-natures and one unchanging nature overall. With two semi-natures, in other words, like one half of unchanging positive is diffusing through itself. And all that can be, its value progressively is longing to it. So that's value A plus value L longing to it. And all that cannot be that is value L longed away from it. And that nature is unchanging positive overall. So it only causes value AH. Allah. This is not what the Quran says, but the Quran's in preservation of ancient, in other words, it's talking about how we lost human education, ancient revelations. Human nature has now conviction nature has attached to it convictions, hurt convictions, evidence fabrication nature, justifications. This is with human nature. And most importantly, this is top down. This is the fault of our branches. And see, the way they're taking fault and blaming the hurt, the victims who end up becoming, perpetrators, they're with roles with that. Literally, too, juxtaposing evidence fabrications to convict people, because that's how everyone was only raised as hurt conviction natures, frustrated, indifferent natures, reaction natures, into terrors, top down, never only realized, blamed on lies and delusions. And with intercity, intercommunity, intertown, interdatabase, interstate, internation, international relationships to this would unfold. What our nations share is called science, and treatments of it is to the animate of a manifestation that is a self-defense nature of itself, as a perpetual breaching method. Our nations, our conviction natures, our treatments of facts, our treatments, and most importantly, in relationship to morality, relationship to being able to report crimes of natures that prove this, because then they offensively ignore facts and make them up and force them, play linguistic games where the people are threatened not to even speak about, to speak about what they have to speak about. And then they don't tell you what they wrote down, but it's a lie. Too long we've been forsaken, lost our rights. Human value nature systems, tossed as cripes, whatever. In other words, I just want to read real quick. For example, too, when I'm talking about the Old Testament and the Quran, there are proofs that they're talking about the same ancient organized crime that all nations fell to. Interscience campuses were criminally re-engineered. Ancient internation sciences, ancient species relations became negative value nature relations instead of ancient species correlation nature of nations. Nations used to know that the sciences revealed that sciences are obligated. The nations are obligated to teach about how we are a correlation nature, ratiocination nations stands. That's why we're a species. We're supposed to correlate what's blocking unchanging positive from its voice. And when we reveal that, we reveal everything. We are. It's about changing positive nature, and that connects with the nature beyond just Earth's position. In other words, with strength, with a nature of might that forces evolution. So, in other words, in the beginning, listen what this says about correlative, the dictionary. This is from the American College Dictionary. The first definition. So related that correlative is something that's so related that each implies or complements the other. Now, this is what I'm saying with the Old Testament. We're supposed to use faith to say, what is the nature of the tree of life that is not it, but is also it? You know, it's not outside that nature, and that's correlation. Again, I read it. Related that each implies or complements the other. So, in other words, correlation, when we try to think, what could it be? The tree of life. It's a value inherent to it's correlation, which is it was an active relationship to all of their values. In other words, one unchanging positive has an active relationship to all all values, like our body, as one species nature, one definition of identity, one nature of it. And let me just read one of the definitions of correlate. The first definition of correlate reads, to place in or bring into mutual or reciprocal relation. Now, in other words, active relationship. Correlation is an active relationship of active value, especially with English, not just with the correlative conjunction, with everything with life. We got to correlate what is good. We have mistreatments of facts, mistreatments forced by experts sharing expertly and sharing, narratives with respect for experts that is unjustified. But unless you look at it in relationship to business and roles with that, because in other words, people are sacrificing their time and energy to self-defeating jobs, but that's how they were trained to it. So they're victims too. But those victims, in other words, they're being trained only to fight, to justify that with lies and delusions. They're hurting other people who can demonstrate this with correlation. We have natures of business incapable of paying us the dues, the damages imposed by this with fact treatments does a lot of hurt, even hurts innocence. You wouldn't believe. We look at history. We know we had sick things through time, misprision criminalities, mass group terror, evil, all kinds of, and they put it little topics, and then they approach that. Everyone's a measured tool, evidence fabrication nature, treating it like that. In other words, and then everyone becomes self-defense natures of treatments of facts and of problems that are predatory to any opinion natures that don't share share theories. Not letting real truths, real ratiocination demonstrate through theory, weaponized, only let evidence fabrication natures. Using theories not by accident. Our sciences are ill. So we have to see beyond smart, which is just memorization. We have to see beyond physical delusions. We have to see to what is unchanging positive. But we have too many serial killer-like justifications of it being an imperfect world and that being impossible. That's why we have negative value nature progressions tied to that nature. That insidious nature with our leaders is actively exploiting already hurt generations, already never freed nations, in relationship to forced comparisons, relationship to internation relations being put before internation correlation. That's not by accident, because they knew nature defended that, are defending physics first. So we're defending negative value nature, because physics is a nature that goes away. It's a negative value nature only because it has an active relationship to what is in demonstration to the nature of our our identities, which are correlation nature too, to perceive this. In other words, we have a nature of diffusion, which is a quality of an unchanging nature in relationship to itself, coming through Earth, coming through our bodies. At the same time, we're eating, which is another nature of correlation, temporary, but as a lasting nature result in relationship to the nature of our identity, which is a third, which is temporary lasting identity. Because now this is diffusing out. In other words, this is into where, as a trinity, but into the greater trinity. We're a trinity within a trinity. Like each cell in our body is a trinity within a trinity. And so correlation, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. What could the tree of knowledge of evil be? But beyond what it is at surface value, which is evidence fabrication. When we attach that to the rest of it, it's evidence fabrication nature. It's both the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil are nature. Being the tree of life is about correlation, which is in relationship to what is unchanging, which is the nature of consciousness, the one that's diffusing through us. Taking additional identities because it's expanding unchanging positive value. So that means, in other words, it's a progressive value to itself. And that's why when we ignore the complete nature of positive, then this is demonstrated by negative value nature progressions, but because by, which is leth of hadis, which is positive value nature not only being pushed away from here, and then staying that progressively, which is hadis, hell. This is, in other words, this is in relationship to that being pushed away, is demonstrating the loss of positive value, unchanging positive, to immediate space. It causes negative value nature progressions, demonstration of that. So especially when you have top-down legalized criminal enterprise causes to people even glorifying negative value nature and rationalization in that, sabotage to ratiocination for everybody, which is what nations are only of nature's doing, because the way they're only realized trained to look at their own titles and how to feel good in relationship to comparisons, not in relationship to correlation, which is comparison only to the only unchanging positive, which is different. It's no longer comparison, it's correlation. Because we share this positive identity. We're not God, but we're in the range of that positive or not. And once when we stay inside the range of that, once we're staying inside the range of that, because positive is is progressive, space nature is progressive positive to itself. So in other words, if we fall within the range that is positive, it's heaven because it's a progressive value. In other words, more positive is being made, and more negative is being made by humanity, because the rest of the earth has no criminal persuasions and unfolded naturally right in relationship to an active value nature system that makes it do that. As positive value nature progressions, it connects and makes positive evolution. Evolution is a term that connects to positive value nature progressions. Real science understands this. Pseudoscience, breaching engineered sciences, put theories, put evolution as a theory consciously to block needs for it by the sciences, where it is not a theory. We know that unchanging positive nature is the cause to positive value nature progressions. And that's evolution. In other words, we see this with the sciences together when we understand it. Not only in relationship to physical values that are dead, but relationship to them actively having an active changing relationship, because everything's in motion. Every active relationship to all identities, to all nature, all consciousness. Consciousness is a value to itself. It's a value to unchanging space nature's positive identity, which is making more positive value nature of itself for itself, though making a progressive value in the form of souls, which is what our identity is done diffusing through ourselves, which is in demonstration of how unchanging space nature positive is diffusing through itself. And so there are three natures of diffusion: positive and overall. Then there's three natures of diffusion in physics, and then there's three natures of diffusion progressively. And that's why Allah's name is used to teach this so perfectly with English that it is plausible that the ancients revealed this name not only before the Quran, but and this is also why algebra was saved by the Quran, by Islam. In other words, education, human revelations, human nature was tactically, criminally re-engineered to have itself defended as a breaching army in relationship to what it doesn't understand. Because now it's only self-defending glorifications of title and of self and of her conviction nature. Blaming people as the problem when the problem was really what consciously and insidiously maintained that are making more people hurt. Because the nature, you can't even report the most serious crimes to the boy abuses of all ages of innocence. There are recorded proofs of this. But if you say it like that, no one's going to ask. And if you say the specific proofs, no one's going to ask. They're going to say sue, because in other words, each branch actor has actors together that are in trouble with it. And would they do that too? They database stack evidences, fake illusions in conjunction with what's been affecting through time. In other words, the problems we have with drugs to all area, murder progressions to all area, international ones, juxtapositions of criminal enterprises. So it's wrong to say that our nation, we have one free election. We didn't, so many ways, but only in relationship to top-down lies and delusions and self-defense of narratives with glorifications of that and of self and of egos. Even sticking all kinds of physical delusions with psychology left uncharged, since with colonization's sickest terror laws. And relationship to it, sabotage is putting theory before what science can demonstrate about identity, sabotaging it with that theory as delusions. So we have psychology, delusion propagating, and with roles with our court, with them respected as medicine, but they're involved with database evidence fabrications, facilitations of the same drug trades through with roles for more complicated evidence fabrications involving their patients and them in all kinds of in all areas, with their roles facilitating not only their criminal uses of their prescription drugs, and even when that is found out, even when they find things out, they have that to unfolding to hide the more complicated ways they've been using our databases in our healthcare and exploitations of all ages of innocence and reactions of innocence in relationship to all standardized impositions upon all agents of innocence, exploited, and it blamed on money. But money's not the cause. It's the treatment of our value nature system. We have correlation, not let. Protracted correlation is ratiocination. We have it, not let. We have pseudo-identities. We have leaders tricked as tool hurt evidence fabricate breaching nature roles. When they say, when they're trying to do good with their emotions, the emotions are the parents of illusion. When they say we're the greatest nation, they compare us. That's disgusting. Compare us to Haiti. Compare us to, At the same time, when they have our campuses teaching, dividing us for cultural reasons, telling them that America did this, not explaining how the international police that put colonization in place, they stayed. In other words, James Madison, just because they made a little fight with England, which cheered us for it because they were extorted by the same thing, geopolitical sciences, greater than England, to the extortion of all leaders, to the pseudo education of all leaders. You know, so what Hertz also puts the arms around. This is a system that redrew human education and only let realize top-down sophistication natures of agencies, as evil agencies, and of that self-defended, and with them handed the means, forced the means to share those policings and to exploit that to all areas with database relationships. Even though they didn't have computers back then, they had terror database relationships, and they had methods with the laws so terror in relationship to so many that everyone only blamed on other lies and delusions, and on our nature naturally. Not in other words, our nature is only positive. What is nature? What it's mixed with is not nature. In other words, it's just a temporary bond matter, and this is diffusing through it to make more unchanging positive value nature, which is consciousness attached to the identity, which is a body of correlation too. So in physics, there is diffusion that is pushed through on with no criminal persuasions. There is diffusion also pushed through with eating, with no, we're supposed to be able to correlate too, value, not just in relationship. We're supposed to understand how we were forced to shared terror markets position, mass marketing, captive value nature systems with mass farming and things like that. How they tricked, only let like things like northern slavery and roles with breaching international terror, not let realize or attach to the criminal insidiousness narratives, with like the formation of Yukon, for example, which is one of our nation's first, I think it was the first agricultural school for mass agriculture. See now they're cultivating self-defense natures as roles with breaching methods. See now they denatured the landscape to force everyone to share forced police markets, forced shared policing of forced terror-forced markets positions, and this was never unchecked. So we've been negotiating with terrorists since founding, and of a nature as policing natures more sophisticated than our campuses and then our people since before our nation's founding. Only let realize the self-defense of treatments of others and of fact treatments perpetually incapable of overcoming the nature of methods and means to maintain this. Everyone awes to this and rolls with it and blaming it on each other because everyone's defending pseudo-identities. Everyone's defending positions that are negative value nature because they're not positive always. In other words, they're claiming they're positive. We have delusions running our nation. We have hurt conviction natures running our nation. We have evidence fabrication natures running our nation. We have an engineering of indifferences in relationship to that, not by accident. This is what colonization was for. It wasn't an England thing, because England was captive by the same thing as France, Spain, African nations that took part of it. Their agencies were only let realize predatory, but with that valued by them because of what criminally re-engineered human value nature systems to do that, to have it perpetually self-defended. The nations self-defending themselves in treatments of identity and of campuses as breaching nature, terror natures. That's why we have problems with so many gangs juxtaposed to our campuses. That's why we have problems with so many like child abuse natures and in so many contexts where people can't even make police reports. And when they try to, the motivations for the police corruption Systemic police corruption is how it's juxtaposed with overtly criminal corruption. But it's not just that. It's how it's juxtaposed with evidence fabrication, lie cover-up methods. In other words, breaching methods that were set up before our nation's founding. They have people already sharing means and ways to get away, and so we get away with lies, actively exploiting all ages of innocence. Especially, it's easy to look at poverty and then beyond the surface value. Well, the only thing that makes it hard is that everyone forces only surface value opinionators realized. In other words, there are the active exploitations of poverty connected to the same motivations and needs to defend active exploitations of that, being the same stewards, active exploitations intercity, ways everyone missed in relationship to how databases and how campuses were and are used for colonization. Worse than colonization. In other words, a captive human value nature system, perpetually. So the tree of life is correlation, nature, in relationship with is actively, in demonstration to us. As a Trinity, beyond this, as the Trinity, that nature as a Trinity, although at the same time, is coming through this. In other words, nature won't change. So we're trying to make it accord with a system and of a nature that is not its own. So it's just going to keep demonstrating negative value nature progressions and demonstration of it. That's nothing to do with physics. You can't put physics, money, before metaphysics, unchanging value, and that's the problem. So we have mass illusion, mass evidence fabrication nature, mass indifferences to all that tied to it, mass an engineering of indifferences that was set up to have people sharing lies and have that measured. In other words, everyone's a tool for per an organized crime method, a breaching method. Each nation, each of our leaders, and all these opinion natures, they're all evidence fabrication natures, and they're tied to the worst exploitations of all ages of innocence. So that's why we don't have the money for things, because we don't have we don't have real value allowed to speak. Then everything just keeps coming. There's no restriction to it, because it's actively a demonstration to us. It's the only thing that shows us what to do. But we can't do it glorifying sciences, glorifying education with guys. All these guys that share that. You know what I mean? Hurt reaction natures. So they have all the resources with predatory fronts in other words, predatory relationships to the rest of the healthcare, the rest of the human value nature system, the rest of education, the rest of the database relationships not understood and blamed other. You know what I mean? We have fake nations, fake politicians in every nation. They can only talk about this nation as good by comparing to sickly exploited nations, including our own. We have sickly exploited human value nature system with poverty. I mean, we're just with poverty, with urban standards, with denatured landscape, not by accident. This was consciously put there by colonization, forced with terror laws not to build any bigger, for long-term breaching methods that were greater than England. England didn't decide. England was already captive by it. That's why they cheered us when we did revolution against them, because we're sharing the same forced geopolitical sciences, criminally re-engineered, ancient international correlation nature to become negative value nature relationships to ourselves, physics first, human internation relations, perpetually, as only let realize her conviction nature, evidence fabrication nature, indifferent nature, fraud natures with our top-down litigation directives. not by accident. People don't want to do this on purpose, but it's expert lean, that not by accident. So when you expert lean and you feel good about yourself, and if you don't, we have terrorist areas that too, like school bullying. School bullying, that's a slanders. That's in relationship to systemic evidence fabrication problems that no one even realizes we have, because no one's being able to see the police. They're putting police reports with charges, and then putting shifting narratives, then pushing them out of court, and then putting in databases what no one really even realizes, categorically arranged to perpetuate obfuscations for anyone to explain or what is really the cause of later to come and already, lied about, lies attached to actual crimes, because they can't. In other words, we have natures of courts that are defense nature of lie progressions that they already did, and then they come up, and that's how they're let trained. That's all they were let trained, like fraud. That's why we have problems with. In other words, and then they want to have fights about. I'm not trying to hurt people's feelings. They take it as feelings, because that we have, insidious natures, who are evil natures. Who are, what are they going to do? They're going to say, oh, that's not right to say those things or to knock our country. That's how you can't grow. If you can't point out negative value nature, then you can't grow. And if you deny that, it's a problem. If people can't handle the truth, that's the problem of the campuses. That's the problem of the leaders, because the leaders play these games with voting and defending physical delusions that education taught them. If you play it out, they can't play it out. They can't have these arguments about real facts treatments, because they're only let standardized to lies and delusions, the theory blocking actual science. And then the actual scientists are different natures in relationship to law, in relationship to their treatments of the facts they have that we need. Only obfuscating per the needs of the justifications of themselves and their own relationship to categorically only let realized reaching value nature systems. So we had not one free election, and this whole election it was predatory. In other words, when they go up there and say all these positive things, they're actively not allowing all kinds of exploitations, all ages of innocence from being reported, and they're blaming it on money with lies and with physical delusions. And because everyone shares that lie and delusion, they get away with it. The fact treatment stops. So you can't show who's lying, and they're forcing it into expert lean. Then you have to go to courts, and their fraud natures, demonstrably, relationship to this, and all that. Why we really lost the war on poverty. The education was breached, and it's internation police. And those are peace relationships in relationship to the opinion natures only let realized with the world. So that's pseudo peace. It's insidious. It's worse than that. It's not peace. What our leaders think is peace, you call peace and call standards. There's nothing. It's garbage. There's not one nation deserves respect. Only the people deserve it, especially people living in denatured landscapes, denatured urban settings, and then they have food deserts like that. That's with terror methods. That's got nothing to do with money. It has to do with sciences leaving money only let realized to, with sciences fraud. In other words, if you have areas that don't have enough food or proper quality food and stuff like that and water, then there is no business until those standards are addressed. But we don't have those standards because of the way it was set up. And everyone glorifying and justifying already too long. Evil. evil standards, and that glorified. It's just sick. So we don't have fact treatments led. We don't have recorded facts led. So we have systemic evidence fabrications covering that up, and already having done that. So we have systemic shared means to lie and get away with that and blame it on other things. So we have conversations not being let in relationship to exploitations of all ages of innocence, which all kinds of hurt that is uncommon, and everyone keeps blaming on sick human nature. They could have been prevented. Serious acts of it. Per Connecticut branches rolls with this. Per Connecticut branches rolls with this too, with other state stewards, in relationship with other nation people, in relationship to the roles with evidence fabrications with 9/11. One can't even make a 9/11 report with facts, treatments that protract, because they force lies and delusions and passions and narratives that have nothing to do with facts, but in relationship to the facts that everyone wants for shared, for theater, for politics, for the narrative that they say voting is the most important right. If voting is the most important right, they're saying that because they're saying, look, you don't have a constitution. You don't have a constitution. Because if you have a constitution, the most important right is actively different in relationship to each person. So these people have to, once they get to the top, they have to justify fraud, guys, and hurt on others. They made it. Made what? They made nothing. It's a waste. They're going to leave the hadiths. We have negative value nature. Not one leader worth. Obama's a great guy. I'm just saying. We can't do it entertaining. We can't do it entertaining lies and delusions with business standards. They're broke. They're breached. Can't even make a report. So I think Obama's our best president, besides James Madison. But it's no good. We're still breached. It means nothing. That's not a fact. What a fact is are the proofs of this, but they're not talked about because they have all these because the way businesses with healthcare too, and how that was originally juxtaposed and stayed juxtaposed, how it stayed juxtaposed with our courts, with evidence fabrication, maintenance, lie progression, maintenance methods, not only tied to our courts, to prisons, and to systems that were put up for this before they were even realized, before the most sophisticated agencies were realized. As roles, as breaching nature roles, evidence fabrication roles, indifference nature roles. But we can't challenge this because everyone's with guys with them, relying upon them in relationship to top-down terror is only realized, like with the latest internation terror groups. Not by accident. They're left juxtaposed and blame the criminal enterprise, known criminal enterprises with our schools and with hurt conviction natures, blaming it on the kids, on exploitations of all ages of innocence, as facilitation of those gangs, as the actual stewards of them, because they were and are internation shared policing roles and needs to get over on us. So they're sharing each other's game. Just because one gang is from this culture, all gangs are using them. They say they're treated like little broken grammar school when they say, "Oh, well, the election's influenced by Russia." Of course, it's influenced by Russia, but not just them. It's not their fault. We're influencing them too, and that's why they say, "Oh, but don't leave that out." That's that's the game they play. So then, no one's speaking honestly. And every nation is involved with those agencies, with those natures of self-defense, of position, of treatments, of facts, and of law. Not let. That's why we don't understand how to change positive at all. Regret. I wouldn't Thank you.